doesn't come in just one shape or size. Here at All Go, we're highlighting that all bodies can find fitness. We're so excited to bring you our series, Living Fat, Living Fit. Today's episode features Elena and Ariel.
So my name is Elena Rovito. I am a Brazilian zouk dance instructor, which is a partner dance, a style of partner dance that is fairly new to the US, but has been around for about the last 30 years or so. It came from Lambada in Brazil. And I started because I was doing ballroom dancing in college, and then slowly made my way into salsa and bachata, and then slowly made my way into zouk, just based off of recommendations of friends. Did not plan to be an instructor, did not plan to be any sort of public figure, and it happened by accident. I hear a lot of similar stories from other dance instructors, like a lot of instructors I admire. Like, yeah, I kind of got into teaching by accident. I'm like, oh, cool, me too. So yeah, that's basically how I got into it. Go ahead.
And I just want to, so you said that style of dance is called zouk?
Brazilian zouk, yeah, Z-O-U-K. Zouk is not a Brazilian word. It's actually a French word that means like party. But the Brazilians were basically trying to find, not to get too into it, but they were trying to find new music to dance to when Lambada started kind of going out of fashion, so to speak. And they started dancing to zouk music from the Caribbean, and then developed their own style of dance to it. So that's why it's called Brazilian zouk.
Oh, that's so awesome. I love all different kinds of dance, and I'd never heard of that dance before. So I'm interested to learn about something new today. That's awesome.
Yeah. Can't wait. Yes. Would you like to go?
Sure. My name is Ariel Juliet, and I'm out of Madison, Wisconsin. I've got a dance studio that survived the pandemic. Yay. We've been operating since 2010, and I've been a full-time professional since I became an adult. And prior to the pandemic, we just kind of did our thing in Madison. It was a pretty insular scene, but people who stuck with the studio really love it. They really, it's a spiritual gathering place, essentially, the power of dance. And when the pandemic hit, I had to get online because that was the only way to continue as an artist.
Yep.
At least in my field. So
same here.
Exactly. That's everybody I've talked to who, does class. Anybody who offers classes, this is the new form of advertising, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So I started creating content so I specialize in belly dance, and then burlesque is my second specialty, and hip hop is not a dance style I teach, but it was the one that I came up in when I was a kid. So those are kind of like the three things that my platform kind of rotates around. And I recovered from an eating disorder in 2016 to 2018. And ever since then, fat acceptance and fat positivity has been a big part of my platform, because you don't just get to be a plus size dancer on the internet and just make content and not talk about being plus size, Yep. So yep. I decided if we were going to talk about it, we were going to talk about it.
Yeah. Love that. Love that so much. Yeah. Yeah. It's really interesting, isn't it? How we don't get to just be dancers. It always has to be part of the conversation. And so if we want to control that narrative, we have to talk about it and make that part of our brand. And it's a little unfortunate on one hand, but on the other hand, it's important. So,
exactly.
What are we going to do?
Yeah. And I feel like that's kind of how it is when you're blazing trails, if you're a dancer that you don't see in your industry very often. Yeah, I agree. It sucks that we have to do it, but I'm also glad to do it. My cat is climbing up. He's gonna be a part of the interview.
What a beautiful ginger baby. Oh,
isn't he? This is Juice. He's my boy.
Hi, Juice. Oh, of course he's an orange cat. I feel like orange cats have their own thing going on.
Yes, and he is very much an orange boy. He's got 2 brain cells to himself, so he's a little smarter than the average orange boy, but just 2.
Yeah, because usually there's just one and it rotates between them, right? So yeah. Oh, that's so sweet. What a cuddly baby. Okay. So I feel like I've seen. Do you have TikTok?
I do. Yes,
I think I follow you on TikTok. But
awesome.
Now I'm connecting your hairstyle to the belly dance thing, and I was like, I think I follow you on TikTok.
Yes. Yeah, that's definitely
awesome.
My main one. I've been doing that one the longest in terms of being taught in classes, and I traveled around the country learning from the top industry.
That's amazing, because I've shared. So I have a body. I call it a body neutrality now, because I'm trying to kind of turn towards that a little more. I have a
Right.
body neutrality support chat for dancers. It has about 40-ish dancers in it, all different shapes and sizes and races. And I've shared some of your videos before in that chat as like inspo. So yeah, that's super cool.
Oh, I love hearing that. That's awesome.
Cool. So yeah, do you want to go first, or you want me to go first with the questions?
Yeah. My cat had knocked my phone off to the side. So let's see. I had asked you one question. So why don't we start with that one, which is
Cool.
what it was about competitions, right? What is your proudest or happiest competition moment?
Okay. Um, I think that I would go back to Brazilian Zouk World Championships. This was last August. And I have had a very interesting, I'm going to divert a little bit. I've had a really interesting come up in the Brazilian Zouk Jack and Jill competitions. So if you don't, for those of people watching, or if you don't know what Jack and Jill competitions are, it's basically where you have leads and follows that get paired up randomly. There's like usually a rotation. So they'll like line everyone up and then they'll say, okay, everyone rotate by a random number, like 5 people. And so you end up with a completely random partner, and then they play songs and you dance to them. And depending on how well you dance with this partner, then you place in the competition, right? So it's kind of like a test of your social dance skills. And like it's fun because you're like meeting new people and you get paired with people you've never danced with before and stuff like that. It's very common in the West Coast swing community. That's actually where this kind of standardized competitions first started taking place, because they've done Jack and Jill competitions in the past, but they're always just sort of like a fun thing. And West Coast Swing, I think, was the first dance style to really take these and kind of standardize them in a way that like you get points and you can track your points, and then you can like get out of different divisions depending on how many points you have. And so Brazilian Zouk started doing this as well, mostly because one of the like main trailblazing teachers in Zouk got tired of being flung around on the dance floor, and she said, I feel like competitions set a certain kind of standard for what the dance should look like and how it should be. And so she started doing these Jack and Jill competitions for Brazilian Zouk, because she also dances West Coast Swing and saw how it go there. So these competitions have been going for a while. My very first one was in 2017 in DC, when I was just visiting, and I ended up winning, and I was completely shocked, because I had not been dancing Zouk for that long, and I didn't think I was that good. And I ended up getting a really great partner, and we won through like several different. So the way that it works is like basically depending on how many people there are, you'll have a prelim, a semifinal, and then a final. And the prelims and semifinals, you're judged as an individual, so you can advance through the ranks. If you're a follow and you get a very bad lead, it doesn't matter, because as long as you dance well, you're going to go on to the next round. And then in the final, you get paired with someone, and that's your partner for the whole final. So you get judged as a couple at that point, and then when you win as a couple. So we won, and I was super shocked, and I decided that this is going to be something that I was going to keep doing. So I, over the next 5 years, kept doing these Jack and Jill competitions, and at times it was really discouraging, because it felt like because they're so new, there's a lot of people in the levels that should actually be in the next level. They can't do it yet because there aren't points. And so there would be competitions where I would do really well, and then I would go to the next competition and there would be people in there that were far, far above my level, and I would do really badly. And so it's like, you have to kind of learn to not assign too much importance to the result of the competition, because also it's so random. It's like a complete game of chance. Even the way the judging system works, because I judge now also, I'm at a level where I'm judging competitions below me, and you get like 5 seconds to look at each couple, because you're judging 30 couples in a 1.5-minute long song, and you're just like trying to like make these snap judgments, and so you really can't assign a lot of importance to it. But it still happens because it's a competition, and when you're in a competition, your brain's like, oh yes, competition, fight or flight mode. So Brazilian Zouk Worlds, I have basically fought my way up through 3 divisions. So I pointed out of novice, pointed out of intermediate, and now I'm in advanced. And this was one of the first few advanced competitions I had done, because there aren't that many dancers in that division in North America yet. I was actually one of the first 7, actually the first 6. And so they don't happen that often. And the first competition I did was in Mexico, and that was okay. And this one, I felt like I did horribly. Like there were lots of missed connections and mistakes and things like that. And then we won. They were announcing the results, and they always announce it from like the bottom up. So they were like, third place is, second place is, and I was like, okay, there's no way in hell that I placed. Like I bet I was in fifth, and that's why they haven't said my name yet. And I was like preparing myself for the disappointment, and then they're like, Elena and Bruno, and I was like, what? So every time that I've won, I have this moment of surprise because I never think that I've won. I always think like, it was okay, or I like black out entirely during the dance and don't remember any of it. So I don't know that I would like, when you ask if it's my happiest or proudest moment, it's like I'm always just kind of in shock processing it. And then it's like afterwards I allow myself to be proud of it. But it doesn't like fully sink in right away. So I think the happy and proud moments are like a week later when I've had time to process it, and I'm like, oh yeah, okay, I did okay. Yeah, so I would say Brazilian Zouk Worlds, because that was kind of a vindication moment for me. I had not gotten a first place win since that very, very first Jack and Jill in 2017. And getting it when I didn't expect it at all was also like crazy. And it made me reevaluate my dancing too. It made me reevaluate how I was looking at myself. I'm like, maybe I'm looking at myself in an overly harsh light, because like, there's no way that I should have thought that I had lost when I had won. Like I should have had a better idea of where I had placed. And the fact that I thought I was last and I won first means that I was looking at my dancing in a very negative light. So yeah, that was a very long-winded answer. I'm so sorry.
Oh, not at all. No, it's really interesting. And especially, I'm a longtime fan of So You Think You Can Dance. I, at one point, thought I was going to try out for the show. So the Jack and Jill portion of the competition just reminds me of that, where you have to be really on your toes with this new partner. And it's a real test of how well can you partner with other people just on. And so I'm interested to hear how you get scored separately, so that even if your partnership didn't really work, you don't necessarily pay for that. So that's fascinating. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's a whole separate like thing you have to train for. Like you can be really good in Zouk and really terrible in Jack and Jill. It's like being a great dancer versus being a competition dancer. They're like two entirely separate disciplines, and people don't understand that a lot, and they get really frustrated. But yeah, it's a process.
Yeah. And I've only done a few competitions, and I guess I'm just on the other end of the spectrum, because I'm on the delusional end of the spectrum. I was like, I did great, and then I do terribly, so I'm not someone that goes well with the competition scene. And I feel part of it for me is that I am not the image of what you expect out of a belly dancer, right? You long hair, normal color, very thin, conventional looking, aside from being white, which somehow is the idea of what a belly dancer is supposed to look like, which is ridiculous. Aside from that, I don't really fit the conventional image, because despite what is said, in the professional level, there is not a lot of body diversity. Do you find on the competition scene, is there much body diversity in the competitions that you're doing, or is it kind of the same thing?
It really depends on where you are. So like in Brazil, there are a lot more plus size dancers that are high level dancers. But in the US, I feel like with the like fat phobia in dance is rooted so deeply that people just aren't in the space. And I actually noticed this because when I'm here in DC, I think it's like a little bit more laid back, and there are more instructors that aren't like your typical, like they're not plus size, but they are like also not like your typical very skinny like dance type. But I think like body diversity in the dance scene out here, there are more people of different sizes that join. I went back to California to teach a workshop last weekend, and I realized that there were way less. And I think it's just because like it's like a cause and effect thing. Like the representation isn't there, so people don't join, and then you just they're not as visible. And so it really depends, and it's really hard sometimes. I'm putting, and I would love to hear if you also feel this. I put a lot of extra pressure on myself to do well, because I feel like when I don't make finals, there's just like I had this experience when I was in Brazil. I didn't make finals in either of the competitions that I did. And I remember sitting there and like looking at all the people that did make finals. They're all lovely people, all friends of mine, but they all looked the same. And I was like, or at least not the same, but like they were all straight sized people. And I was just sitting there feeling like I have failed everyone, because there's going to be plus size dancers in this audience that are looking at this competition just like I used to, and going, I can't be up there till I lose weight. And I was just like, oh, so much pressure. Like,
I know, I hear you on that.
so yeah, do you feel like there's extra pressure on you to like do well and promote yourself and all these things because of like that obligation?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. Just the pressure to always look clean and professional and polished. You know what I'm saying? Like, I feel like you cannot have anything wrong in a costume, period, that maybe a straight size dancer would be given leeway for. You get none of that. If any of the undergarment, because you know, with belly dance, you pin your undergarments, and a hint of undergarment, like, forget about it on a plus size dancer, that everything has to be perfect, you know, that it has to be absolute professional level attention to detail for everything. Because I've been straight sized, I've been quite small as a belly dancer. And yeah, you could show up with much less makeup and much less hair done, you know, and at that time that didn't matter, because I was so locked into like being an ornament of a human, that like I came with the extensions and the lashes and the everything anyway. But yeah, it wasn't the same. And you have to work harder as a technician in dance, as a plus size dancer. Like, your technique must be in a way that was never expected of me as a size 2. Nobody cared. Oh, you look pretty in the costume, so
Yep.
who cares? Your hands are sloppy.
I have really noticed that with dancers in the zouk community as well, where it's like there's a lot of different styles, because a lot of people come from different backgrounds. You have dancers that are from ballet that have very balletic styles, and you have dancers that kind of have more like almost, I wouldn't say floppy, but like more like kind of, they don't put like intention, and they just kind of let their arm flop, and it looks a certain way that looks, I think, really aesthetic with the way that zouk flows. But if you're a plus size dancer and you do that, it just looks messy. And I've had people say that to me before. They're like, oh, like I do this thing with my arm and it just looks messy. And I want to be like, this other professional that's super skinny does that exact same movement, and you think it looks so free flowing and so great. And then on you, you're like, oh, it doesn't look good because I'm fat. And I'm like, it's,
Exactly.
yeah, you know, and it's like in zouk, like it's a little bit less, there's a lot less effort put into like looking really polished at the socials, for example. It's kind of, people think of it as like almost like more hippie, you know, they're like, oh yeah, the zookers show up in sweatpants and it's all fine. And you go to like a salsa bachata festival and it's like everyone's in like evening wear and suits, you know. But when I'm in those spaces, I feel like if I show up in the relaxed look, that people are going to be like, oh, look, there's the fat girl being messy. But you know, it's, oh my God.
Yep, that's exactly it. It's the same way in the belly dance world. It's exactly the same way. Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, so much less way given, for sure.
Yeah. I look forward to the day, probably after I'm dead, when that has changed. But you know,
me too. And that's why I do what I do, you know. And there's a lot of trolls out there that would like to not see that. Do you get trolled pretty hard too online?
I think that I have not been exposed to the mainstream world enough to get that. I've noticed that when my videos, like I recently had a video go viral on Instagram for the first time. And it's like 19,000 likes or something by now, which is really cool. But at the same time, I'm seeing these people come in that normally the dance community, I feel like even if they're thinking it, the community is so small, they're not going to say it because things are very keenly felt in such a small community. And they don't want to like be part of some drama, right? But rando strangers on the internet will say just about anything, and it's crazy to me. I'm like the most recent video is where I won a competition, right? And I wore very on purpose a very tight skirt that like showed my belly, and like a crop top that was like spaghetti straps and like very tight fitting. And there were a lot of comments that were well-meaning comments about like, oh, like it's really nice to see someone who's not in a conventionally beautiful body, like doing blah, blah, blah. And then someone else is like, her body is beautiful. What are you talking about? And then someone else is like, yeah, but like her choice of clothes was poor. It made her look bigger than she was. And I was like, my choice of clothes was very intentional. And also I'm just big. I don't look bigger than I am. Like it doesn't really bother me as much as I thought it would. It more bothers me that other people might see that comment and like take it as gospel, you know? And I've seen you deal with the comments from trolls on your TikToks and stuff too. And Yeah, I like the way that you deal with it.
And that's why I do it, because I'm not answering for the trolls. I'm answering for the people who are lurking. I'm answering for the people who haven't found the voice to say, you know what? I don't know if I can swear on this, so I'm not going to, but I would swear at that person.
Oh yeah, I don't know if I've been swearing either. I don't think I have, but
I don't think
something
you
to
have.
watch out for. Okay.
I run a show at my studio. Inappropriate Song Night is what it's called, and it's like we hold it 3 times a year. And there's a part in the beginning. Oh, we can swear. Thank you.
Hell yeah, hell yeah.
Perfect timing for this. So, in the beginning, we do a call and response thing where we say something like, "Oh, are you sure you should wear that at your size?" And then the response is, "Fuck you, I'm doing me."
I love that so much.
And that is
I
the
love that
spirit
so
of the
much.
studio. And so that's the spirit that
Yeah.
I take the comments, that I deal with the trolls. I'm actually wearing, I was thinking about the outfit that you were saying, these shorts right here. Oh my God, people hate on these shorts so much. And I'm just like, you guys, the more you hate on these shorts, the more I'm going to wear them. I'm gonna make a video and tag you in them so you can see that, let it burn into your retina.
Yep.
I love it.
Yep.
I love it.
So I'm going off script here, but I have a question for you because you mentioned that you recovered from an eating disorder in 2016. And I recently started recovery, like at the beginning of the pandemic is when I started. And I'm curious, like, because you've been in recovery longer, like, how do you feel like over time you continue to kind of view your body in a more positive light? Do you feel like you're kind of progressing upward, or do you feel like it's just, I know that it's not linear, right? But I'm curious, like, how you feel now about where you view yourself versus how you felt then. Like, how much do you feel like that's changed, and how
So,
often do you find yourself in the old mentality?
yeah, actually, that's a great question, and something that I feel like is I don't give the answer that people expect. So that inner critic voice is what kept me off of, that voice that says I don't deserve to be seen, I don't deserve to be looked at, I don't deserve to be in front of screens, like I can't take up space, right? So that voice kept me from posting on social media until I had to, right? And then when I started to receive comments that were the same things that I'd said to myself, I found it so incredibly helpful for my inner critic to have become a real person that I can say something back to. And the people who criticize me are nowhere near as creative at insulting me as I am. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm
Yeah.
sorry, you guys are on shame level 1. I have been on shame level 98. You can't even touch the things I've said to myself. Please, okay, you want to call me fat? Fine. Why is that bad? Sounds like your fucking problem. So,
Right.
and in this process, I've come to see that we are simply mirrors. People are looking at themselves when they say these things to us. You know what I'm saying? They're seeing some part of themselves they don't like. They're seeing some part of them, of society's ingrained messages that they're just regurgitating, that they feel some kind of safety in. That's all that's happening. It has nothing to do with me. But then when people come and say, I had somebody leave a comment, a little picture. She said, I haven't belly danced in 20 years. I was inspired to dance at my wedding for my husband because I saw your videos and I felt like I deserved to be seen. She had a body a lot like mine. Exactly. And I'm like, that's what matters. I don't care about people spitting their own bullshit about themselves at me. That means nothing. It means nothing, So at this point, it has given me the peace that I was looking for. I never would have thought that other people hating on me the way I've hated on myself would help. But like, it made me come to see these people aren't on my side. What are they doing for me? Nothing. They're giving me views, though. That's great. They're leaving comments because the algorithm doesn't know the difference between a hater and a super fan, and I have found that I'm like, well, my body's on my side. My body is doing nothing but taking great care of me. Why would I hate on this? You're the one with the problem, So it took this internal battle and made it external. And then I defeated it. I still have body dysmorphia. That has been a factor of my eating disorder. I'm bigender, which is I identify as both a man and a woman. So I go between like gender dysphoria and body dysmorphia. Like I know I'm in a femme phase when I'm struggling with body dysmorphia because that's how it comes out. So I know that I still see a warped image, but I don't have any feelings about it anymore. I'm just like, it's not real.
Yeah.
And the feelings that I had attached to it, I really had to dig in. I feel like, as coming from an eating disorder world, that's like saying I came with the most fat phobic beliefs, because I did. I had to challenge all of those beliefs. And once I challenge those beliefs and say, well, why do I feel that it is bad to look fat? Because it's not bad to be fat. And really started addressing that and why I felt the way I did. Those two things combined has been the healing I was looking for.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, that was what I was curious to know, because I feel like there are some days when I just feel completely free of that struggle and just full of vim and vigor and courage. And then I still have days where I'm like, nope, I'm going to put on that big old t-shirt and hide from the world. And I think that's probably pretty normal, but I'm wondering, if time goes on, if you've experienced less of those moments and more moments where you feel like the fearless vim and vigor self,
Absolutely. Yep. Yeah, I live in that spot now. And there's still moments of insecurity for sure, but they're few and far between. They really are. Yeah. It gets a lot better.
Awesome. I love that.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm on the other side. I'm reaching a hand over and pull you over to this
Please
side.
take my hand. Yeah. Sometimes I have to remind myself that I've literally been on this journey for so little time. I think because the length of time before that feels like part of it. But I have to remember that I only started like not trying to lose weight in 2020. Like, it's so recent, but like, the 20 plus years of, body dysmorphia and eating disorder before that, like, makes it seem like, oh, I've been at this for so long. Why am I not better? It's like, no, you really only like opened the door a couple of years ago. So calm down.
Yeah, and it does. It takes, because I bottomed out in my eating disorder in 2016. And then it took from 2016 to 2018 to like come to terms with that I had an eating disorder, because I never fell below like a BMI of 23. But for me, that was sickly. I was quite ill at that size. Like, that was I was, experiencing the things like hair falling out and stuff like that you start to experience when your body is underweight. So
that's atypical anorexia, like,
yeah, which is not,
you don't look because you don't look skinny enough,
You're not emaciated to the point that you're about to die right now. It's so like that's a criteria. And I think that that's changing. I've heard that is changing, but it isn't. I hate that it's called atypical, because it's more typical than getting to not all bodies get emaciated. That's just not, it's not how it works. So it took 2 years to come to terms with that I had an eating disorder. I also didn't have a treatment team. I mostly recovered on my own. I've got a dietitian that I work with now and have been working with for a year and a half, but I couldn't afford anything. And she's like, I cannot believe that you recovered from this on your own. Because I still struggle with ARFID now, like anorexia triggered avoidant restrictive feeding intake disorder. So it's hard for me to eat enough. Like, I have a lot of food aversions and stuff. But yeah, it's been 5 years since the point of being like, okay, I have an eating disorder and I need to change how I'm thinking about this. This is 5 years later at this point. So it takes a long time. I wish it didn't.
It does. And it's really interesting to me now too, looking back and seeing how many times I told, therapists and doctors and things about what was happening, but nobody ever really said the words eating disorder. I had to figure that out on my own. And I gaslit myself into not getting treatment and again, I also recovered on my own. I didn't have a treatment team. I didn't have a dietitian. But I gaslit myself into not confronting it for the longest time. So I'd be like, if I had one, I'm sure my therapist would have like figured it out by now and said something, or I'm sure that this doctor would tell me. But I think because I was overweight and coming to them with these concerns, they're just like, oh yeah, like whatever, it's just a control thing. You're just an emotional eater. It's like, yeah. Because I think for me is like, I would do like these binge and restrict cycles. And I think because the restricting part just sounds like dieting and everyone's okay with dieting. And so they were just like, oh, so the just the binging part, like that's, and that's not an eating disorder. That just means you're a fat little piggy and you need to like not eat as much, like
exactly.
It's
yes.
crazy. So I finally realized there was something wrong when someone said something. I like read something about binge eating disorder. And I was like, wait a minute, that's a disorder. Like, it's not just anorexia. Like, oh, okay. And then I started kind of looking into it and I was like, oh shit, I have a problem.
Yeah. Yep. Uh-huh.
Yeah. And I just remember like all the times over the years, it just really ticks me off now that I think about it. All the times over the years where I had not quite gotten as bad as I was, and then someone said or did something. Most of the time it was a doctor. So like I went in for a OBGYN appointment when I was in college. And at this point I had been steadily gaining weight because I had a lot of other mental health issues in college and stuff. And the binge eating was like out of control. And so I gained like 40 pounds in a year. And I remember like going to the doctor for this OBGYN appointment. She goes, your BMI says that you are morbidly obese. And at the time, I still had a flat stomach at the time. I was just heavy because I had a lot of muscle. I was an ex-gymnast and I did dance and parkour and things like that. And so I was like, my weight was heavier than I looked, but I had a flat stomach still. And she was like, your BMI says you're morbidly obese and you're going to be pre-diabetic and blah, blah, blah if you don't lose weight. And she said that to me. And that, just spiraled me for years. That set me back probably like 3-4 years. Other times when I would go to the doctor and they would like say things about my weight, things like that. Cause then it started showing, like as I gained weight, like I started to slowly not be straight sized anymore. Right. And the way that people treated me just got so crazy. And I know that knocked my phone over. You probably experienced this too, right? Like when you were in your smaller body, like people treat you so differently. It's not just in our heads. I feel like that's something that really frustrates me when I try to explain my experiences now as like a plus size woman to people. And they're like, oh, you're probably just overthinking it. Like there are lots of reasons why guys act like you're invisible or like, why you're not making these auditions for these competitions and things like that. And I'm like, you can't tell that to me because I've experienced life as a very skinny person and also in the body I'm in now. And people treat you so, so differently,
Yes. Yeah, I completely agree. It is, and it's really frustrating when straight size people then make it about like a confidence thing. Like, no, this is external. This isn't just an internal battle, or sometimes it's not an internal battle at all, and it's just about the externals. And this is exactly why in my platform, the main thing that I focus on is medical equality for plus size and fat people, because this is the number one way that women and femmes experience discrimination, and the number two way that men in masks experience discrimination. And it's such a big deal. Like what doctors say makes such a big difference. And there's no understanding that doctors come from the same culture that we do. Morbid obesity is not real. That came from bariatric surgery so that bariatric surgery could be sold, which by the way is the most well-paid surgery. Like surgeons who do bariatric surgery make a killing. And this is why, like, they created this category to sell amputations of stomachs, because obviously the solution is every fat person just must be gorging. So let's just shrink the stomach. And, it's just, it makes me so mad.
It's really also crazy to me that we still use BMI in medicine. That was not even created by a doctor. It was created by an astrologist who only studied like white Scottish men. Yes. And my best friend is in med school right now. And she's telling me how like there are still showing pictures of diseases and stuff only on like white bodies. Yeah. And there are a lot of, things that are going undiagnosed because of these stigmas, and it's not changing. It's crazy to me. And so that's part of what I try to tell people in my like support chat too, that how to advocate for yourself when you go to the doctor, because it's a whole separate level. It's like first being fat, then being a woman. Like they're just, you're basically might as well just not be a person. Like they're not going to take anything you say seriously.
I know color too. I'm sure that's, adding to the equation.
Yeah. I mean, I am fortunate. I should acknowledge that like, I am not one of the not model minorities. I'm mixed race Chinese and Italian. And so it's like, I have it a little easier than people that are Black or people that are brown, but at the same time, I do experience, my fair share of discrimination with that too. But I do like to just acknowledge that it's a little bit, I'm a little bit higher on the privilege scale. It could be worse, but definitely not easy. And I think especially like in Asian cultures, like they are very, very fat phobic to an extreme. And I don't know like how much of that comes from like colonization and how much of that comes from European influence, but how much of it was just already in their, their culture as it was. But it's pretty bad. I actually one of my partners is also a plus size man. And we went out for food the other day. We went to this boba shop, and he speaks like, it's really funny because he's white, but he speaks fluent Mandarin. And so whenever we go out to these places, they always look at us funny because he orders in Mandarin and I order like number 17, please. And they're like, looking back and forth between the two. I was like, what's going on? But we went to this boba shop and we were just like having a good time ordering our stuff. We were laughing it up. And then he got this really weird expression on his face. I was like, what's going on? He's like, I'll tell you later. I was like, okay. And then this group of people walked out of the restaurant and he goes, they were talking shit about us in Mandarin. And I was like, really? And he's like, yeah, they were like, we walked in and the one girl was like, oh, like, look how fat they are. And the other guy was like, well, maybe they're trying to lose weight, you know, and they were like having a whole conversation about our bodies right there in front of us. And he didn't say anything to me because as soon as he said something, I started to go outside and follow them. And he was like, he grabbed me. He's like, it's not worth it. Like, don't do it. But you know, that's like pretty normalized. Like I have a lot of friends that are immigrants, like first generation immigrants, and they have it even worse. It's like, you know, so there's that too. Oh, there's so much change to be had in so little time.
I agree.
Yeah. Do you ever get frustrated feeling like it's like a never ending battle, or does it just invigorate you more?
I do get that frustration sometimes where it's just like, God, is this, sometimes it feels like being one of a few solo fish swimming upstream, but we're all so far away from each other that it doesn't even feel like a pack sometimes, but then there's moments like this where you come together. And I've got chat groups with other content creators and other fat activists. And so that helps me. They're my lifesavers when I start to feel like the lone salmon going up the stream.
Yeah. Oh man, I might reach out to you about getting added to one of those groups because I do get support from the chat that I'm in, but I feel like I kind of have to maintain this position of like the ringleader. Right. So I try not to like lean on them too much because I'm like, I want you guys to lean on me, so.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And because that happens with my students too, and when you come in with that dynamic already there, as the ringleader or the teacher or whatever, yeah, it's hard to have an equal relationship under those circumstances. It's nice when it's another creator and another creator just coming together to talk about. Because I've got a couple other friends of mine in the belly dance world talk about Nurjahan Bolden. She's a dancer on TikTok, talks about that it's like standing in a coliseum and people are throwing tomatoes and roses at you and you just have to stand there and take both of them.
That's really accurate.
I know, right? And sometimes it doesn't matter how many roses you're getting when you get that one tomato right in your eye.
Yeah. Oh God. But it does help to see, like, I'm seeing changes in my little circle. Like I have two friends that I made when I first moved to DC that used to dress like, how the plus size sections are at like normal stores, where it's like, you should look like a, grandmother, that's from, medieval Russia and only wear dark colors and swaddle yourself in so many layers. Yes. And they used to dress like that. And then after I've been working on them slowly for like, and not everybody has to, be more risque or whatever, but I think that you want to be able to decide that for yourself. Like, am I being modest and wearing all these dark concealing clothes because it makes me happy or because I feel like that's what society has told me to wear? And so after repeated exposure to what I call the hot fat bitch method, this is not trademarked, it's just what I've been calling things. Like they're slowly, I see their wardrobes changing and they both tell me, they're like, yeah, you've made, like one of my friends' first time ever wearing a bikini in public was because I dressed her that day. I was like, we're going to the lake. Here's my swimsuit that you're going to borrow. Here's my cover up that you're going to borrow. And now we're going to take photos while we're at the lake. And I took like a bunch of really pretty photos of her. And she was like, this is the first time I've ever worn a bikini. And I love it. And so like slowly their fashion is changing. Now they're wearing bright colors. They're wearing more like tank tops and like revealing things, crop tops and stuff. And it makes me really happy to see like even just those two people, if no one else accepted anything that I did and it was just those two people, it makes it all worth it because they feel so much better too. And so it's fun whenever we're out in public together and I see an outfit that they're wearing that's really good. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's like peak hot fat bitch. And they're like, yeah. And people who are listening are like, because they hear me say hot fat bitch and they're like, oh my God, like, what does that mean? And I'm like, that's just a word. It's not bad. We are fat. That's what we are. Like, and we're also hot and we're also bitches. So like, so I need to like trademark that somehow, start making merch that's like hot fat bitch here,
Yeah, that's perfect.
Yeah.
That's so my studio is that way too. Yeah, and I love
Yeah.
seeing people blossom. Moms and grandmas come in fishnets and shorts and little cleavage tops. And my favorite is when they divorce their shitty husbands. That's my favorite. Dance life is the bane of bad relationships. Oh, if you are on the verge of divorce, don't come to dance life because we will knock you over the edge of that.
It really is. I see that a lot in Zouk too, which in Zouk sometimes it's a little tricky because you have these people that are social dancing and they mistake dance connection for compatibility. And sometimes you get more toxic relationships, but you also see a lot of people realize that their relationships were not healthy when they do come to dance. They're like, oh, my partner was like getting insanely jealous that I was just dancing with other people and like wanted me to stop dancing and do something that brings me joy because they were jealous. And so I broke up with them, and now look how much more happy I am. And I'm like, that's the kind of changes that I like to see.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Or like, when someone's partner, like, fat shames them or whatever, and then they leave and they're like, wow, I'm so much easier and happier now. I'm like, yes. So we like to see.
Exactly. People being like they realized that they deserved more, that they were accepting less and they didn't have to do that, getting filled with confidence that says, I deserve good things and I deserve to be seen and I deserve for my needs to be respected. It's amazing how dance leaks out.
Yes. Now, if only I can turn that inward and use all of those things on myself.
You can. I promise. It so works. It really does.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm again trying to be patient with it and give it time. And it is kind of hard because people are still going to be biased. Like no matter how much I love myself, no matter how confident I am, I'm still struggling to accept the fact that sometimes that won't change the outcome, you know? It's really interesting when I go into dance spaces that I'm not well known in because people take one look at me and they assume that I don't know how to dance or that I'm going to be bad at dancing or maybe even that I'll smell bad, and I have this whole strategy, and so many plus size dancers and also women of color that I've talked to in the dance scene have to do the same thing where you show up to a social and it's like, you can't just stand on the wall and expect to be asked. You'll never dance. And that used to happen to me a lot when I first came into the dance scene. I was in Los Angeles, which is like the peak of like fat phobia USA. It's like dance industry plus Hollywood plus modeling plus everything. It's like, it's really bad. And so I used to like spend entire nights on the wall, and the only dances that I got were the ones that I either was leading. That was actually when I started learning to lead because I would just never get asked to dance as a follow. Or when I would like go up to someone and ask them, and then it was always like, yeah, okay, and so plus size women and women of color in the dance scene, we have to have this whole strategy where we like ask someone to dance that's a good dancer, and then we like make sure that we're positioned in a spot on the floor where people can see you, and then you have to like kind of show off, but not too show off, but show off a little bit, and then people will start asking you to dance. Like, and then after one or two of those kinds of socials, then people realize, oh, okay, they're a good dancer, and then they'll ask you to dance. It's nuts. And then some people who are like skinny and blonde and white will just show up. That's all they have to do is just show up and stand there and look hot. It's like, it's infuriating sometimes.
I feel like this circles back to what we were talking about in the beginning of the conversation of if you're showing up fat, you better show up perfect in every other aspect because you'll be given no leeway at all. Mm-hmm.
And it's tough when I'm like looking at those competitions too, and I'm watching, these other dancers make finals, and I'm like, they're making all the same mistakes that I make, but because of like this perception of skinny equals better, what they're doing looks better. Right. And so there they are, there's some dancers that haven't been even doing zouk for that long, and their styling still isn't like really zouk-y, if that makes sense. Like it would be like if I was like, if I started belly dancing, it's like it's gonna take time for my body languages to shift in like code switch into belly dance technique. And so you still see these like influences in their dance that aren't quite zouk. And it's like, you shouldn't really be up there, but because you look a certain way, like there you are, and no shame to any of these people because they work really hard and they're all my friends. But at the same time, I'm like,
it's still a different.
You got to acknowledge, it's a completely different game that they're playing. So
there's I think it's TikTok or maybe Instagram. I'm not sure. There's a fat creator who does a series called "Is It Fashion or Is She Thin?" You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. I don't know if it's the same creator, but there's one. Her name's Erin Samho, something like that. And
Yeah.
she stitches these videos of these girls like, oh, put your underwear over and use it as a bra. And then she tries to do it. And she's just like, no.
No. Yes,
She's like,
I've seen that one.
Can I jump? No.
Yeah, absolutely not. I can't believe TikTok's allowing this.
That's the other thing. It's gotten better, but I remember back in 2020 when I first started following these body positivity influencers, their videos would get taken down all the time for nudity and inappropriate content. And then you have a skinny girl doing worse or the exact same thing and nothing, you know?
Yep.
Like I remember, I don't know how much time you spent on Instagram, but do you remember I Want to See Naomi?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. For people that don't know, there was this Black model who posted some very tasteful nude shots for herself, but nothing was showing. And she was getting them taken down all the time. And there was, you know, Kim Kardashian doing the exact same pose, and it's fine. It's got millions of likes, you know? And I feel like that was like a good turning point for the, like, whoever was doing the Instagram modulating, and same for TikTok, because like it was really bad. It was really terrible.
Yeah, I still have problems with that. I've had problems on Facebook and Instagram, or Facebook and TikTok. I've not had any issues with that on Instagram, but I still, like, my burlesque videos get so much less play. And I know for sure, because I've had enough of them taken down, that I did a video where I was doing a shimmy tutorial. And at one point I was sitting on the ground with my legs right out in front of me, and then like squeezing my thighs together to show like, these are the muscles that you activate, the ones that you squeeze together with. That one was taken down for sexual content. Like, I still, Facebook ads were taken down because it showed like this much cleavage. Yeah, I've had a really, really tough time with that. Yeah, and I see thin accounts do like where they're doing the splits and the camera's like crotch, you know what I'm saying? And I'm sitting here like, okay, nope. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, sure.
The amount of times that I was told, even when I was not fat, but I just had boobs, and my sister too, like the amount of times we were told like, oh, you're like showing cleavage, you're showing cleavage. It's like, we just have boobs. Like, we're not showing anything. The same top on a skinny person wouldn't show anything. We just have boobs. Like, am I being risque, or do I just have a body? Like,
exactly. You know? That's exactly it. Yes. I'm sorry. They're double D's. They're going to be visible. I don't know what you want me to do.
Yeah. Oh man. Well, there's so many layers. Should we stick? I don't know if we need to stick to questions or if we can just keep talking like this, but I think we've gone.
We've gone over our time. Yeah, it's 12:54. We just got wrapped up in the conversation. Oh, sorry for the editing. That'll have to be done for this later.
Yeah, no worries. On my end, anyways, I thoroughly enjoyed this. I thought this was really, really fun. And I would love, I'm going to find your account on Instagram so we can like be mutuals there. And I would love to like take a trip out to you sometime, or if you take a trip here and like do some sort of collab video, something or other, you know.
I would love that. Absolutely. Anytime. And let's stay in contact, because I feel like us creators, we gotta stick together.
Hot fat bitches gotta stay together. You know?
Hot Fat Bitch Club. Yes, it's official. And I'm looking forward to seeing more of your Instagram. Can you tell people where they can find you?
Yes, so my Instagram is at Elena the Rhinestone. You can actually search that tag anywhere and it will pull up my Facebook, my YouTube, all the things. So at Elena the Rhinestone is the place to go. And if you want me to follow you back, you have to message me, because I'm still getting bombed with notifications from that one video and I lose people so quickly. So yeah, and then where can people find you on social media?
So I have accounts on TikTok, Facebook, and Instagram. They're all at Madison Dance Life. And I post all the same stuff on all of them. I'm just going to warn you right now. And I have somebody moderate my comments, because that was my gift to myself for 2023 of sanity, is have somebody else moderate my comments. So yes,
that's amazing.
Message me there so that she can send it on to me. And I see the good ones, just not the shitty ones. Yeah.
Yay, mental health and protecting your space.
Exactly. It was so awesome. Wonderful to talk with you today. Thank you for this excellent conversation.
You too. Thank you so much.
Hey y'all, comes me to do yoga in the park. I brought my own mat, but they do offer supplies like these sliders and blocks if you do need them, as well as yoga mats. This class happens in Oak Cliff, and it's rain or shine as people walk by. I started doing yoga again as a way to reconnect with my body through mindful movement. I've been meditating, and yoga to me is just movement and meditation and movement. I will say that being in a larger body, I did feel like people were staring at me, but to be honest, they were probably just staring at all of us. This class was more beginner friendly than most of the yoga classes I've taken recently, but I will say that larger bodies were not necessarily accommodated. I often felt myself having to come up with my own variations of moves that were too difficult or simply sitting them out. This class happens every Sunday from 9:30 to 10:30, and it's taught by a Black female yoga teacher who goes by the name of Flow in Nature. As you'll see in a little bit, I did fall over and stumble quite a bit, but I feel that that is the nature of yoga. If you're new to it, it's all about balance, and I have none of that. Like I said earlier, bigger bodies weren't necessarily accommodated, and I was the only plus size person in the class. However, I will say that after the class, I spoke to the teacher and gave her some feedback, and she was more than receptive. I explained things like plank or boat pose can be harder for people with larger bellies or larger bodies who can't necessarily put all their body weights on their arm, and she was super receptive to the feedback. So I definitely will be coming back. Just important to keep that in mind, that unless you speak up, your body won't necessarily be accommodated. All in all, I really enjoyed the class, and I feel that anyone in a larger body would be more than happy taking this class. It is free and donation based, so that is also very accessible. And yeah, I hope that you all enjoyed this video, and I'll see you next time. Bye!